You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. And now, TSPN News with Tom Slavik. Comprehensive news because in today's world, you need more than just sound bites. TSPN, streaming on the World Wide Web, and now on demand at TSPNTV.com. Hi everyone, I'm Tom Slavik and welcome to TSPN today. Today's newscast is going to be with Supervisor Richard Forster talking about the upcoming Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow. So Richard's going to give us a pre-agenda. How are you doing today, Richard?
Pretty good, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. So it looks like you're about ready to go. We're going to take a break. When we come back, get ready for the Supervisor's Report. You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN. And we're back. I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Richard Forster. What's on the agenda, Richard?
Quite a few items. I don't anticipate it being a long meeting. There's one item we'll get to that should have significant discussion. But first item is just going to be introduction of our new labor negotiator, Daryl Murray, who's replacing Diana Dowdy, our former labor negotiator that works from IEDA. It's a contract position. It works out well for us. Sometimes you need that insulation, having that contract person there, and a lot of times they have significantly more knowledge because this is all they deal with is labor negotiations. So also besides the capacity of labor negotiator, they give our CAO labor advice in employee-employer relations, and they assist him in preparing and developing strategies for meet and confer processes, which I think we have 7 or 8 bargaining units, which is a huge number of bargaining units, but that's the way it is. So you need some help sometimes.
I think it'd be a good idea because you're not talking directly to that. So like you said, it insulates it and puts someone there that's looking out for the county's interests.
And we've done it both ways.
Taxpayers in the county.
Yeah, we've done it both ways, and it is workable. It's just our relationship with AIDA has been very good, and I think we're going to plan on keeping that.
All right.
Next couple of agenda items are dealing with sale of county-owned property. As you know, we have sold the county courthouse now and the adjacent property to it. Some people think it's a bad idea. Some people think it's a good idea, but as far as our board's concerned, we can't be sitting on property that is an eyesore to the community, an eyesore to Jackson, and that we don't have the money to put into to at least fix the normal wear and tear things like the roof leaking. You're looking at $300,000–400,000 to fix that. That we're going to put into a building that we don't know what to do.
You don't have any foreseeable use for that building.
That's right, and we're not in the land business. So our goal is to try and get out of some of the land businesses. The first is the Rab Collins personal property. This is a little bit different, but the estate that was donated by Alethea Collins, we had a person, Linda Hawthorne, who thought that she could put that she would get a small commission, 10%. She thought she could put that on on a national website with 55,000 subscribers at no cost. It ends up being there is cost to that. So with that in mind, there would be a charge to list on that national website. We're talking about going away from that, and there is interest in this property, but it's on the East Coast. So a nationally known firm on the East Coast that deals in Victorian furniture, would come out here, package the things, send them to the East Coast. It would cost $3,000 to do that, though. So the property, they estimate, is a conservative estimate is $74,000 is what it's worth. A more liberal estimate is slightly over $100,000. So on top of that $3,000, you're going to be paying the 10% commission to Ms. Hawthorne, and then you would pay a 10% commission to the company that is marketing the item. So the board will talk about that tomorrow. Even if you get the lower conservative estimate, the county would net out about $56,000. I think it might be a good deal for the taxpayers, and we're not going to get that kind of money here in California. The interest is just not here. And right now, I'm not sure the money is either. So,
Okay.
so anyway, we'll move on. But actually, on the property we're talking about, there's a piece, 8.72 acres up on the southwest corner of China Hill Quarry Road and Pioneer Volcano Road. We tried to list that property, and the county has selected Coldwell Banker to be the listing agent and to deal with us exclusively on these properties. And they did. They were successful in marketing the courthouse property. This property, we started out pricing it, I believe, at $29,000. There, Coldwell Banker is recommending that we, $29,500 is what it was listed at. They're recommending that we republish the listing at $27,000 and see if we can get some bites on that. But they do feel in their research that it is worth the $27,000, and we might be able to market it for that.
How did the county get that piece of property?
Different people have donated property to the county over time. This one, the original owner was a woman who acquired it in, I think, 1971 or 72. And for one reason or another, people donated it to the county.
Curious, do they get a tax break for that donation? Is that why that happens?
Sometimes they get a tax break off it, I'm sure.
Okay.
So I can't tell you what happened in that original case, but the next one is out in Lake Comanche. It's 0.52 acres located at Lot 498, Lake Comanche Village, Unit 1, at Newman Court. So this property was originally listed at $9,900. There were no bites on that. It comes up, and bids have to be put into our General Services Department. No bids were accepted. Okay. So Coldwell Banker is recommending that we lower that to $5,000 and relist it again, looking at carrying it through April if we have to try and sell that property. Right. Next up is dealing with a different kind of property, but back to the waters of the United States. Unfortunately, our consultant, John Hoffman, will not be able to be at this meeting, but he has put together a letter working with the information that we had from RCRC and other sources, again talking about what's wrong with what the EPA wants to do with the waters of the United States. And it's the same thing that we talked about a couple weeks ago, and the board will most likely approve a letter on our Tuesday meeting. But again, they're trying to change the definition of navigable waters to an interstate to include all waters, basically everything from a small stream to a puddle in the ground. And what this would do is, of course, affect counties. It would affect the tributaries included as waters of the U.S. It would affect water supply systems, water reuse facilities, rural roadside ditches that often drain directly into tributaries, ditches used to convey municipal stormwater discharge, and water conveyance systems for flood control purposes.
Richard, you and a lot of counties are fighting this. Are states weighing in as well?
Yes. Okay. California State Association of Counties is opposed to this. The National Association of Counties, representing all 50 states,
seems like it's a very big, I guess, water grab. I can't call it a land grab, but by the federal government to somehow be in control of all the water.
Well, unfortunately, this is being supported by the administration, and you know, it does not make any sense to do something like this. This was meant for navigable waters, and they're trying to use a statement from Justice Kennedy on the Supreme Court. Now we're turning that around and using Justice Kennedy's statement, where he says, statement that to constitute navigable waters under the Act, a water or wetland must possess a significant nexus to waters that are navigable. So that's pretty clear to us that that means waters where you actually are in a boat or something.
And even the significant part, it seems like ponds that aren't hooked up in any sort of way. There's no nexus.
So they're trying to broaden this nexus, what their interpretation of the nexus, to include basically everything. It doesn't make any sense. They're also ignoring...
The nexus must be the raindrops.
Yeah. They're also relying on a draft report, which is in our letter written by John Hoffman, that it points out the draft report, that's just never done. You don't rely on draft reports. You wait till the final copy comes out, and then you rely on that information. So I'm sure we're going to send that letter. Whether we're going to be successful, I mean, the House of Representatives has already authored legislation to restrict the EPA from doing this, and the President has already said he will, if that legislation comes through, he will veto it. So unless you can get the top guy who appears to be not very engaged sometimes on issues, unless you can get him to understand the issues, we're going to have problems with this. And if it comes down to the National Association of Counties and a lot of states making a lawsuit to
it might be another case of federal government running against the grain of the American people. Well,
they do that sometimes. So anyway, next item up is Fiddletown Community Services District. All this is they're asking, they have an additional request in for a USDA Rural Development grant, and they already have a loan from the county. So in order to apply for a new grant from USDA, they need to get a letter from the county saying that we know, basically, that we know what they're doing, that they're submitting a letter for a grant that will be along parity with the county's loan from the USDA loan. So that's all this is. I don't see the board having an issue with sending this letter.
Okay. We're going to take a break at this time. When we come back, we'll bring the rest of the agenda to you. Stay with us right here on TSPN. And we're back, and I'm with Supervisor Richard Forster. Tomorrow's going to be a Board of Supervisors meeting, and we're going over the agenda. So, Richard, where do we leave off?
Okay, this next one's a little complicated. And it may be premature being on the agenda. Supervisor Oneto put it on the agenda at the request of Ray Ryan with the Fair Foundation. Pat Crew and Ray Ryan, who are on the Fair Foundation, visited with some staff, legislative staff, and looked at an agreement for operation of our county fair. How could you do that and get under the authority of the state of California? Because being under the state, one, nobody wants to put a bunch of money into our fair right now, which they need for health and safety issues and general improvements like electrical, like sprinklers. Nobody wants to really get involved and do that because
it's going to be on state property?
Well, but they're not even sure that the fair is going to be operating in 5 years.
Okay.
So why would people put $100,000 into the fair not knowing whether it's going to be around in 5 years? Now, I personally think it's going to be around forever, but those are some of the complications. So what they're looking at is a bill, Senate Bill 1085, that covers the Antelope Valley Fair, which is down in the Los Angeles area. And what this does, this is the 50th District Agricultural Association. Ours is the 26th district. But what this bill did specifically was create a joint powers authority to operate the, and I'll read directly, but it would operate the Antelope Valley Fair. So it would do things like the JPA would have duties shall include planning, designing, and constructing real property improvements. It may accept donations, acquire, own, sell, or lease property, may pledge its property for revenue of the sale of bonds, and it may make and enter into contracts and employ agents, and the fair employees there would not have to be state employees. They could be JPA employees. So, to make a long story short, this is a model that Pat and Ray are looking at. That's something that could work for our county fair, because what everybody's trying to do is make it so that people want to donate to the fair. Right now, there's hesitancy because people just don't want to just give it to the state, not knowing whether that property is going to be sold.
How would the JPA relieve it from the state's responsibility?
Because it's under the JPA. Essentially what it would do, and these are some of the things we have to work through, essentially by creating this JPA, and let me go to the actual Antelope Valley Fairgrounds Authority is what it's called. the people on that JPA are the one member appointed by the state senator, one member appointed by the state assembly member, one member designated by the mayor of the city of Lancaster, one member designated by the board of directors of the association, which is our fair board. The fifth member shall be a member of the board of directors of the Friends of Antelope Valley Fair, which is akin to our Fair Foundation. Now, that's the way theirs operate. And the responsibilities they're tasked with are to basically do everything needed for the operation, maintenance, and improvements of the facilities and functions of the association. So that's what they're looking at, a way to structure a JPA. I think the way it was explained to me, possibly you would coordinate it with the county of Amador. You would have 2 members of the Fair Board, 2 members of the Fair Foundation, and possibly the entire Board of Supervisors on there. There are some problems I see with that.
Is it in the Senate bill that says the state's passing it on to this entity? Is that what's happening?
Specifically, it does that. It's the state would pass it on to the JPA, but the hitch is the state still owns the property. So the one thing the JPA could not do is sell the property. They can, anything they bring on or deal with that. See, those some of the questions I have is, what happens if they construct a building? Could they, if it's going to go totally, if the JPA goes away, could that building come off of the grounds then? If other improvements are done, obviously, if you're going to do electrical, they're going to stay with the facility.
Could the state give the properties to the county? Turn it over like make it county property?
That's a big question too, because I'm not sure the county wants the property. Okay. The state could. The question has been, okay, state of California, lease that to the JPA or lease it to the county of Amador for $1 a year. The state has not been willing to do that, and because part of it is the entities that want to do that want it for a long term, for reliability, let's say 20 or 30 years.
Sure.
The state's been unwilling to do that. And the other hitch is the governor wants to keep appointment authority over the board of directors. The problem is with this structure, if you have 2 members of the fair board on the JPA, that's really, it is the JPA that would run the operations of the fair. It would not be the fair board. And as I understand it, the fair board then would become stewards of the fair. Well, being a steward of a fair is kind of like being a horse that finishes last. You don't get anything for that. You're a fair board director in name only, appointed by the governor. So I could say I was on the fair board for 17 years, and,
yeah, right.
And so I understand a fair board member has a lot of duties,
right,
and they care about the fair. And they're stewards of the fair already, but they have the business aspects to deal with too. In this structure, the JPA would be what deals actually
would have the responsibility
with the workings of the fair. So if I'm a fair board member, what am I then? Well, I'm appointed by the governor. Well, what else are you? Well, I'm a steward of the fair. And the next question I have is, what happens if that JPA, if something happens, and let's say there's embezzlement. Let's say there's you see something going on that's totally wrong, and you're a steward of the fair trying to point that out. Well, nobody needs to listen to what you say. Hopefully they would, but nobody needs to listen to you. Well, who does, when everything hits the fan, who does that fall back on? It's probably going to fall back on the fair board, even though the fair board would not have any real responsibility other than being stewards of the fair. So there are some details and things we have to work with. I know as I was told by Pat, the fair board is not 100% comfortable with this, and you know, it takes a while to absorb all of this and work through the details and vet it out. And I think that's what we need to do.
At first glance, it sounds like the fair board, other than the 2 members that would be appointed to the JPA, would just be figureheads, so to speak, or a name only.
Those 2 members of the fair board on the JPA, if that's the way it ends up, may be on the short end of votes too. Quite often, they may feel something's wrong, and it still may be voted in. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with all 5 members of our Board of Supervisors being on there. I'm also not sure I'm comfortable with the county being the main body. The way the Antelope Valley Fair works is the city of Lancaster, I believe, was responsible for the employment of those state employees who did no longer wish to work for the state. And that's the whole reason to do this, is to reduce your costs, bring them over to county or city government. Somebody has to employ them, so it would be the JPA, but they'd probably work through the county structure. I don't know how much cheaper it would be to do that, but the other big thing is financial responsibility. Right. If the county belongs to that JPA, the county's got the deep pockets. One thing it specifically says in the legislation is the state would not be responsible for any debts or obligations of that fair board. Let's say
that would clear them of all liabilities?
The state would not have the liabilities. The county, as a member of that JPA, would have the deep pockets. So is the county willing to accept that? The other thing that happened in Lancaster, in the Antelope Valley Fair, is the city of Lancaster put, as I understand it, put significant money into the operation of the fair. I'm not sure, and I don't think the county has significant money to put into the operation of the fair.
Well, we're running out of time. I'll give you another minute to go over that last item if you need to.
Won't even take a minute. This issue on the fair, though, it's going to be interesting. If it works out, there will be legislation introduced at the first of the year. But we have some work to do, as you can see. There's a lot of questions out there.
I think so.
Yeah. Last item is just going to be from the California State Association of Counties, our appointment of a delegate and alternate to the Board of Directors of that association. And as you know, I'm second vice president now. I'll be going in as first vice president in November if I get elected, which you have to get elected every time. Okay. I don't see an issue there. So I do not have to be on the Board of Directors to serve as an officer for the association. So in a way it's good. It allows more of our board members to be active and involved.
All right. Very good. Okay, that supervisors meeting is tomorrow, and we're going to say goodbye. Thanks for watching. See you again next time. You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.